Hello and welcome to NCBI Labs. One of the big pieces of tech news so far this year has been the release of the second version of the Apple iPhone SE. So just how good is it? Well, as part of a recent live event, NCBI Labs technology trainer Joe Lonergan joined us to talk about just that. So now we're going to move on to another big development recently, the announcement of the Apple iPhone SE, or to be accurate, the second version of the SE. And joining us again for this part is NCBI Labs technology trainer Joe Lonergan. Joe, you're getting plenty of exposure today.
Yeah.
You're involved in everything today. That's great. So, Joe, you've been just having a bit of a look at the features of the iPhone SE, the second edition. What can you tell us about the features?
Yeah, well, as improvements go, it's a big upgrade from the older iPhone SE, which was similar to the iPhone 5. So it's got an A13 Bionic chip, which is the same chip that's in the iPhone 10 and 11 and 11 Pro. Mm-hmm. And this means it's got a faster processor. And it also will support new versions of iOS going forward. So Apple will tell you that it won't go out of date for at least 4 years, or will support the new iOS updates for at least the next 4 years. I suppose anybody that has an older phone like iPhone 5 or 6 will be trying to upgrade to a phone like this. It also has the home key returning to a newer iPhone, which is a great development for lots of people, especially vision impaired people that may not be comfortable with Face ID. Also, Face ID, if anybody's wearing face masks these days, Face ID is not going to work too well. Face ID doesn't work very well in the nighttime either, in the dark, I suppose, and in your bedroom if you don't want to turn the light in nighttime, Face ID isn't that useful. So Touch ID is really useful in cases like that, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're on the loose or anything like that, and you're confined to a space as well, it's not easy to hold up your phone, you know. So yeah, it's big welcome addition was the Touch ID, the home key coming back to the iPhone.
Yeah, very good. So just to kind of give people a bit of a picture in their mind, I suppose, of what we're talking about here, it's pretty much the same size and shape of one of the older iPhones, the 5, 6, is it the 6, 7, and 8?
6,
I think.
7, and the 8.
And you were saying
the smaller versions of those phones is not the same size as the 7 Plus or the 8 Plus. It's the original version of the 6, 7, and the 8. The 4.7 inch. Okay. There is no large screen version of this. It just comes in 4.7 inch, which is also welcome for a lot of people. They like the smaller phones. There is a lot of people out there that love smaller size screens. Yeah. It's still not as small as the old 5. It's a bit bigger than that, which is good as well.
Okay. Okay, and so it's basically, if you're thinking about it, it's that kind of physical shape and size, but it's got the brains of a much newer iPhone in it, and it's got a physical home button. Is there any other features in it that are kind of new or that are noteworthy?
Well, yeah, I suppose this can be a plus and a minus. It's got a glass back and a glass front. So the last, I suppose the 8 was made of aluminium kind of stuff, so that means it was a bit stronger at the back, so if you did let it fall, there's more chance of it surviving. But you can buy a cover, of course, to make that prevail. The reason it's glass is to support wireless charging. So, you know, if you bought a wireless charger, it's a slower type of charge, but you can leave it on your bedside locker at night, and there's no fumbling around for chargers or anything like that. Yeah. And wireless charging can come in handy in lots of ways. You know, I suppose it's if you're watching a movie or something like that and you wanted to stand up, or you have a wireless charging stand, things like that. So that's one addition. There's also, I suppose, when I see what else is there, the screen is much the same as the 8, so the screen wasn't updated. There is a newer camera.
Okay. And the newer camera, is that something that is still important to somebody? If you can't see the screen, is the camera still useful?
The camera is still useful, obviously, for a better picture, but for apps like Seeing AI, and I suppose even Be My Eyes, and probably less so, but the likes of OCR apps like Seeing AI, KNFB Reader, there is a couple of more scanner apps, that kind of thing. It's always good to have a better quality camera, especially going forward as they update the app as well, and they probably add new features, the newer camera, wider lens, all that thing will make a big difference going forward.
I think I think one of the hugely important things with the iPhone SE is that it's also cheaper.
It's cheaper.
Exactly. I mean, it's absolutely the entry level iPhone, but it makes a perfect device for people with sight loss, because though if you don't have any sight, the size of the screen is kind of irrelevant, so you get all the features of an iPhone 8 essentially, which is I think they're €700 or €800, and in most cases you'll probably get an iPhone SE free with the networks if you sign up for a contract. I think it's €499, which is very, very expensive to buy outright. But in all likelihood, if you're signing up to a contract, you're going to get it as a free phone. And I think it's one of those things is that it might be described as an entry level phone, but it's still a phone that's packed full of all of the latest technology. That will ultimately support people with sight loss, which I think is to me is incredibly powerful. I mean, what about the usage? I mean, having the Touch ID back, the Touch ID sensor back, is a much more tactile way to use a phone. How do you find in general? Do you think that would be something that's going to be incredibly useful for people with sight loss, Joe?
Personally, I welcome the Touch ID back. It's even for buying apps, rather than holding your phone up to your face to give it, face recognition. Just to put your thumb on the fingerprint and allow Apple to take payment with your finger ID, it's a lot handier. And also for turning on VoiceOver with the triple click home, it's easier as well. I know you can do it with lock key in the new ones, but I just find it more intuitive doing it with the home key. I think it adds more value to the phone to have Touch ID, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. One of the things that I find, I use an iPhone 11, and I have the one with the bigger screen because I've limited vision. But I know you mentioned wireless charging, and to me that sounds like it's a great feature. But for someone with sight loss, I used to always struggle plugging in the lightning cable, and you'd notice after about a year of using my phone, they'd kind of be damaged because I wouldn't quite get them lined up on the first try.
Yeah.
So having wireless charging has been a bit of a game changer for me, because I just put my phone down and it buzzes to indicate that it's charging. So I end up getting a longer life out of it because of wireless charging, and it's a great feature, I find.
And there is lots of different types of wireless chargers available. But also one other thing I didn't mention is this can be a plus, and the minus, I suppose, is the 3.5 audio jack isn't there anymore. You now have to use the Lightning earphones or AirPods, AirPlay buds, is that what they're called?
AirPods, yeah.
AirPods, I think.
AirPods,
AirPods, yeah. Apple AirPods are expensive. That's one drawback. But you get a free Lightning earbuds in the box, so at least you do get earbuds with it. But if you want the wireless ones, they're €200 plus.
Can I ask you just the most important question? I mean, did you listen into the debate last week about Android versus iOS by any chance, Joe?
Dangerous ground here.
I did. I listened in.
And would you think that the iOS won in that situation?
Personally, I would. I wouldn't go Android myself.
Jude was very polite last week and didn't announce a winner, but I firmly believe that iOS won that discussion.
We'll have to keep a running score here.
I actually think that's one of the reasons, another reason that they brought back.
I see Sean and Daniel aren't unmuting themselves either to contradict me, so it was a hugely successful victory.
I actually think that's why Apple brought, one of the reasons they brought this entry-level iPhone in is to compete with Android. Apart from the lesser price, the Touch ID factor, they lost some users because they got rid of the Touch ID. And to bring them back again, they brought in a phone almost as good as the 10 and 11. And some people prefer the smaller size because they use it with one hand. There's no this. You don't have to be holding it with two hands when you're typing either. So that's another plus.
So you're saying that basically Apple have had to up their game just to compete with Android.
Just like there is some Android phones out there.
So I think, I mean, if you look over if you look, sorry, Jude, if you look over the key features, it's essentially an iPhone 8 at a much reduced price. You've got a glass body, so you've got that reinforced glass, which is a good feature. It feels better in your hand. It's a smaller screen, and then again, if you don't have sight, why would you need a larger screen? It's got the same A13 chip. 12 megapixel camera, which is great for apps like Be My Eyes and also for other ones such as Seeing AI. Touch ID, wireless charging. It does also have fast charging, which feature I don't really notice. Excuse me, too much. So I mean, there's some great features in there. One of the other things, I mean, the no headphone jack. I mean, it's kind of. I think if you're going to rock an iPhone or an iOS phone, you kind of get used to the adapter life, or you use you use like the Lightning headphones. One thing I wanted to mention as well, which is I found really useful, and just as a general user, is it does have increased water resistance, which actually adds to the longevity of the phone as well, because in just day-to-day life. I don't know how many times phones that I've used have just gotten damaged from, splashes of water, or, being out in a night out and it's sitting on a table where there's beer involved, or, things like that. I think that's a huge feature. I'm not sure about Joe. Joe, what would you think?
Great feature, actually. Don't ask me how many times in this house phones have either slipped into sinks or even fallen down the jacks at one stage, or someone spilled tea on their phone.
I wasn't going to mention the jacks incidents, but yeah, go.
That has happened.
It is a reality.
I think the people that have these phone maintenance shops are cursing these waterproof phones now. They're not making as much money anymore. But it's a great, and dust proof as well. Often dust gets into your little ports down the bottom. That's one plus about having no headphone jack. The dust can't get inside and do damage.
So what would we, I mean, in terms of upgrading, I mean, that's the question that people, when we're talking to people on the support line, like in what cases would you recommend people upgrading this phone? Like if you had an iPhone 5, would you, or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever the case may be, at what point do you think is a good way or good time for people to upgrade to this?
Well, at the moment, iPhone 6 is Apple are not letting iPhone 6 upgrade past iOS 12. So, what version are we in now at the moment? Is it iOS 13 or 14? Well, it's going 13, so we're on 13 now. And if they're not supporting the 6 anymore, they're trying to phase out 6, and that means some of the newer apps won't be working on the 6 either. So if you have a 4, 5 or 6, very little people have a 4 anymore. Some people still have a 5, and some people still have the iPhone SE, the older SE. So I'd be advising anybody that is coming to the life end of a 6, or they find the battery is getting not charging as well anymore, and they're thinking of upgrading, this would be the phone to go for, I would advise, unless they need the bigger screen and they're have some useful vision and they want to read larger print. Possibly the iPhone 11, if they can afford the iPhone 11 or the 10, they're the ones to go for. But in general, I'd be advising this phone. So some of the apps.
Can I just ask almost the other side of that question, Joe? Just where you're going there with who maybe might go for a different phone. It's kind of interesting. On the face of it, you're talking about, even though it's an entry level phone, it sounds basically like it's a premium phone, realistically, for actually a very low price. So is there anybody who you would recommend, actually, you don't need to go for this phone if you've got such and such, whether it's Android or Apple?
I wouldn't recommend anyone don't go for the phone, because it does everything you want to do. No, I wouldn't recommend any not go for it. Entry level price, I wouldn't say very, very low either, but it is to buy it outright. Yeah, it's not very low. But if you are on a bill already, it's almost, in most cases, it's free. And I've seen it for €99 in some contracts and for free on others. And as I said, Apple, I think, have a flexi fee option, or at least Harvey Norman sell it for a flexi fee option. So you can buy it by the week if you really wanted to. So look, I wouldn't put anybody off buying this phone, even if they have some useful vision. But as I said, it is personal preference. If you want to go for one of the bigger screens, whether that be an 8 Plus or one of the 10 XR or 11 Pro, some of those, they have really good screens as well. They might suit them a little bit better, but it's personal preference, as price often comes into it.
Yeah, very good. I think it might be a good time just to come over to Daniel, if we could bring Daniel into this. I think, Daniel, you've been just checking the questions that have been coming in about this. Can we pass over to you?
Yeah, we just have a couple of questions in on our chat side. First of all, does cleaning during this COVID-19 outbreak, does cleaning your phone with antibacterial wipes, would that be, could it cause any damage, any cause concern there?
Well, one of the things, if you don't mind me answering that, is actually I'd looked into that myself recently, because given how much we touch our phones on a daily basis, cleaning them is very important, and you don't want to damage them as well using antibacterial wipes. So Apple have basically said it's okay to clean your wipes with it's okay to clean your phone with disinfectant wipes, and they've released a support document on it. So the short answer is yes. And what we'll do is, when we upload this video to YouTube, we'll include a link to the article that Apple has said it's okay to do it.
Very good. Thanks for that, Karen. And also, maybe this one for Joe. I'm interested in upgrading to an iPhone SE, but the storage option to go for, I noticed there's 64 GB, 128 GB. I tend to take a lot of photos and record a good bit of video. What would you advise?
Well, first of all, I'd look at the phone you have already and see how much space you've used up on it. If you're touching on the 64, if you're going up towards the 64 gig and you're nearly full, I'd advise you go for the bigger option if you can afford it. You have to keep in mind that bigger the memory on the phone, the dearer the phone. The entry level is 500, and if you go for a 250 GB, you're talking at least 100 euros more. Well, I said on the bill before, you can strip that down a little bit. But yeah, I'd advise, if you're taking photos, videos, or using the phone for work a lot, I'd advise you to go for at least 128 GB.
Very good, Joe. And I suppose that leads me to one final question. From an Android user, can you put in a micro SD card?
Yeah, I think you can answer that one, Daniel. No, you can't. No.
Why would you want to?
Yeah, we're going to buy 128 GB. We don't need a micro SD card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that sounded like a planted question, that last one.
That's a plant.
I wouldn't think so.
Somebody with a vested interest.
Just can't admit defeat, can you?
Very good. So thank you very much, Joe. Karen, any final comments on the SE?
No, I mean, the one thing is, if you do have additional questions, or you are thinking about upgrading, don't forget you can call or email us. So if you want to email labs@ncbi.ie, we'll be happy to give you any further specific advice that you might need, and that technology support is available and to you from NCBI Labs. So labs@ncbi.ie if you have any further questions on the iPhone SE or any type of technology.
So thanks again to Joe for joining us to talk about the Apple iPhone SE. Now, if you want to check out more interviews and how-to videos and even discussion about current technology, just look for the NCBI channel and be sure to subscribe if you enjoy these videos. But for now, until next time, this is NCBI Labs.